Life insurance is a great question because for a lot of people, they don't like to talk about it. And we have sort of a little joke we'll say to a customer, just because you buy life insurance, it doesn't mean you're going to die. Because it's like with a will. Should you have a will? Absolutely. You should have a will. Everyone should have a will. But that's the same sort of mystery question. People are afraid to do it because they think something's going to happen.
You're listening to the Rich State of Mind Show, the podcast made to make you the total package in the entrepreneurial world and give you what we call a rich state of mind. If you are here looking to learn about real estate investing, marketing, elevating your business, and developing your mindset to get to the next level, then you are at the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join our community on richstateofmind.com. Now here's your host, Anthony Ritchie.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Rich State of Mind, where I'm talking to Rich Kasparian. He's the founder of Garden City Financial Group Incorporated. Rich and his firm work passionately with individuals, families, and businesses to plan, manage, and pursue their financial goals with confidence. Rich founded the firm back in 2009 because he knew that there was a need for sound, personalized, and objective advice in the confusing world of financial planning that we live in, and sometimes the lack of common sense. He's passionate about helping business owners and individuals protect their investments to ensure a happy retirement. So please welcome Rich to the show. As always, please enjoy. I think this would be a great one. And thank you for listening. Hey, Rich, thank you so much for taking this time on a Saturday morning up there in New York. I'm down here in Virginia, so we're on the same coast. I'm so used to sometimes being off, like somebody's about 3 hours off, and then our calendars have to make sure that they're aligned. But if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and we'll get started.
Yeah, sure. Nice to be with you here. Rich Kasparian, company is Garden City Financial Group. We're located in Garden City, New York, which is on Long Island, although we service clients throughout the whole country. Basically, we're a financial services business, and our main sort of focus for investments for our customers are not only, trying to create upside for a customer, but the most important focus is downside. How do you maneuver during the sort of bad times? In terms of myself, I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. You and I have something in common there. Yeah. And I've been out on Long Island for about 30 years. I have family, married, and 3 kids. Garden City Financial Group, we started about a little over 12 and a half years ago. And like I said, our main focus is preservation of capital with growth for our customers.
Okay. And so what's that intro like? Say I come to you, Rich, and say, hey, I'm looking at, preserving my savings, investing. How is that? How do we kind of figure out how you can best help me?
Generally speaking, I think in our industry and in my industry, unfortunately, most advisors just always talk about the upside. And they're always sort of projecting or showing you the history of this fund or that investment. But at the end of the day, if a customer looks at their statement online or in the mail and it's down, they start asking questions. So what we do is we kind of work in reverse. So one of the first things I would probably say to you is, you have X amount of dollars. Let's first do a review of what you have. Let's see how you're invested. And then we sort of take it from there. How we start from reverse is I'll generally say to a customer, how much do you want to keep in cash for that rainy day? Most advisors, unfortunately, they work the opposite way. So if a customer had $50,000 to invest, they talk about investing all $50,000.
Yeah.
We kind of do it the other way. We basically say, okay, what do you want to keep in cash? So when you look at your bank statement, it's there.
Yeah.
If you need it, and then we'll talk about a plan for the midterm, sort of like the 5-year mark, and then long-term investment. That's sort of the strategy.
And that actually seems pretty easy to understand. And it doesn't feel intimidating at all. Like, okay, you kind of give me a step-by-step guide.
Right.
What are some things that you implement? You have, how much life insurance do I need? Because you talk about how much cash and not to invest everything. How is life insurance kind of put into that?
Life insurance is a great question because for a lot of people, they don't like to talk about it. We have sort of a little joke we'll say to a customer, just because you buy life insurance, it doesn't mean you're going to die. Because it's like with a will. Should you have a will? Absolutely. You should have a will. Everyone should have a will. But that's the same sort of mystery question. People are afraid to do it because they think something's going to happen. So life insurance, the way we break it down pretty simply, is you need life insurance pretty much for three things. Number one, if something happens to you, what do the debts look like? And, what do your liabilities look like? Is there a mortgage? There's car payments, whatever the case may be. The second thing we look at is income replacement.
Okay.
So if this person, husband, wife, passed, what's the loss of income potentially? Okay. If the second person doesn't work in the household, it's only a one person working in the household, then it would be, well, maybe we're going to need childcare. How much would that cost? Okay. So again, that's first, income replacement second, and then third would be more discretionary, college savings. Do we need to have X amount of money away for college? Unfortunately, that usually suffers the most because college is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Costs that you could almost never save enough money. So generally speaking, people really look at the first two things. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if a person passes, every debt gets cleared off the table. But it's just sort of a guide.
How much do you want people investing? 20%? Do you have like some type of ratio?
You're talking about investing in general?
Yeah, 20%.
Okay. So the first thing we always recommend is if at a job, if you have a 401k, whatever you can do, we would recommend you do. So a lot of companies, back in the day, companies matched 5 or 6% of what you put in. They would match up to 5 or 6%. A lot of them don't do that anymore. But certainly if a company's matching 5%, we would say put 5% in, because now you're putting away 10% tax deferred. In terms of savings, how much should you kind of put away? I think 10% is a reasonable number. You have people say, well, it should be 15, it should be 20, but you got to look at reality sometimes. So like a simple formula could be, 10% towards savings, 10 or investing, and 10% towards debt. The biggest mistake people do make is if they have a payday, let's say there's a tax refund, do they get a nice bonus at work? They'll automatically take that and they'll just, well, I got to pay down this credit card. And then what ends up happening is they do that. It sounds like a great idea, but then what ends up happening is then they'll start putting money on a credit card again. So they really didn't help themselves.
Yeah.
So if you keep to sort of a simple formula, not too much, I think it works.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is the hard thing to do for some people. And that's why some people just cut their credit card up. Right. you put down that $5,000 on that credit card just to rack it back up again. And
exactly.
Then, instead of maybe I would say maybe split it in half. Maybe 2,500 goes towards investing, and 2,500 goes towards the credit card. So at least that way, that one of them is maybe outpacing inflation. And so you talk about inflation, about the truth about it. What do we really need to know about that in order to make sure that our assets are not, or our cash is not, depreciating in value?
Right. So inflation, the new numbers just came out, which, thought everyone couldn't imagine that it went that high again. So we were at 7%. They just announced a couple of days ago, inflation's at 7.5%. It's a 40-year high. Now, keep in mind, in the early 80s, it was at one point, I think, 12%. And then the 40-year high really puts us at like 1982, when it was actually coming down. But my point is, one thing people have to understand about these numbers that come from the government is they're phony numbers. They're not real. And I talk straight. I just tell you how it is. Inflation, the way inflation is basically determined is there are components to what we call the consumer price index. So let's say it's beef and it's lumber and it's oil and all of these things. The way they sort of cook the books is if there's any component in there that has a huge price jump, that component just gets pulled out. So I'll give you an example. A few years back, there was a whole scare with beef because of the mad cow disease. That was 10, 15 years ago. So what did they do when beef was up 25%? All of a sudden, beef gets slid out, and then they put something else in. Because people have said to me, well, how could inflation just always stay at 2.5% to 3%? Well, that's how it works. But now they can't hide the numbers because everything's going up. So if you ask me, what do I think real inflation is? It's probably easily in the double digits. I mean, just go to the gas pump, go to the supermarket, try to buy a piece of lumber at Home Depot if you could get it, so that's it. Unemployment is another number that's fudged, and it's been fudged for years and years and years. So unemployment's 4%. Well, after the pandemic, do we really believe unemployment's 4%? It's just, that's almost like everybody working. So so what do they do with unemployment? How do they cook the books with unemployment? Well, if you stop looking for work after a certain period of time, you don't count anymore as a body. So you get pulled out of the total. So again, you just have to sort of be cognizant of the numbers and what they are. How do you beat inflation? It's hard. You either got to make more money or you got to try to just sort of put more money away. Certainly bank accounts don't cut it because the interest rates are still zero.
Yeah.
So that's where we sort of try to come in with investing where you have upside but have some downside protection.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part. I'm hearing like, upwards of 15% is the real inflation.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Percentage.
That's what I'm hearing as well.
And so most people, they're not getting 15% raises in order to match that. And so it is harder to pay your rent because I'm a landlord. And so if I'm a landlord that has to increase my rent because, hey, prices are going up, my contractor, I remember I used to get charged for my contractor maybe $500 to do something out at $750.
Yeah, right.
So
exactly.
I have to increase my rent. Lucky for me, my margins are pretty good, so I don't have to go crazy. But some landlords, they do, and then that tenant, their paycheck has not increased, and so now they're in a bind. And so it's just like a snowball effect.
No, it is, and it's interesting you actually bring that up because yesterday numbers were released that in some big cities, I think the national average was for rent increases was like 14%. But in big cities like New York, it's as high as 30% increases.
I believe it.
So, I mean, how are people paying this rent? It's crazy.
They had double 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they're getting the 4% from. So there's people out there that have 2 jobs that make it for the people that have no job.
Yeah, right. You're probably right. That's a good point. It's a good one.
And so you also cover estate planning. What does that all encompass in regards to, investments? 529s, y'all take care of it.
529s, college savings plans. Yeah. I mean, estate planning, when people hear it, they always think, oh, I have to be a multimillionaire to do any kind of like planning. But in reality, you don't. I mean, basic estate planning is, do you have a will? If you don't, you should. Do you have what we call a healthcare proxy? Meaning if something happens to you when you're in the hospital, who can make the decision? And number 3 is, do you have a power of attorney? Again, if you can't make decisions, who could make sort of those money decisions? So that would be sort of basic estate planning that everybody really should have, especially if married or not, or have kids, it's definitely a way to go. And a lot of times the attorney who does it will coordinate with the financial advisor, and we coordinate with attorneys and accountants all the time. Advanced estate planning is basically, how do I pass money down to my heirs and try to preserve taxation, and so they don't get killed when they inherit some money. And there's ways we do that in life insurance, just basic tax planning, opening up various trusts with an attorney. So again, those are things that a lot of times I'll coordinate with an attorney or an accountant.
Awesome. And you also provide estate planning for business owners. And
yes,
how does that look? How does that work?
So unfortunately, the biggest problem you have sometimes is you have partnerships in a business, a small business.
Yeah. You
have 2 and 3 partners, but they have no plan if something were to happen to one of the partners. There's no plan. So God forbid, like one of the owners dies. Well, what happens to that person's share of the business? And if the other partner or partners don't have the money to buy out his family, does the wife or husband then come into the office and start sitting in the chair, who maybe knows nothing about the business? So what we do in those cases, again, there's what we call a buy-sell agreement between partners. They basically have an agreement that if something were to happen to each of them, there's a life insurance policy that we would do in coordinating with the attorney. And what if one of the partners passed, then what would happen is the document would say that family member who was to inherit the money gets bought out using the life insurance policy.
I think, well, obviously somebody passing away is not awesome, but I think that that contingency plan is great because I could see that being frustrating. I've heard of horror stories about that where, somebody inherits the business or at least the other half, and it's just a headache now.
Right.
Because their plans is completely different than what their fathers or mothers were. So yeah, I could see that. I could see that definitely going down the wrong path. So why would I do something? Do a lot of people not do it because they don't know, because they don't like the premium on it?
Well, there was, I'll tell you a quick weird story. So we did a plan for 2 attorneys and a buy-sell agreement. And we did the insurance policies for the 2 partners. And then about 6 months later, I don't know, we're having a conversation and we're realizing the 2 of them never even did a document. So it's like you're saying to yourself, this is your business. You're an attorney. You're supposed to, it's kind of like the electrician who has a light bulb out in his house.
Yeah.
So we were actually joking about that. So I think it's people just don't really know that they should be doing it or there needs to be a plan for it. Sometimes the plan is not only to get bought out with an insurance policy. In one case, we have a 3-way partnership where the document basically says the son gets brought into the business. He'll then take over as a partner. So it could also be done that way.
Okay. And I would think that, that son has some type of training, been built up in some type of way for everybody to be confident.
Correct. Right. Yeah. It can't be just someone coming in that doesn't know anything.
I'm thinking out loud. I was wondering how that works for like franchises, because, you don't really own the business. Like you're an operator. Just something that I'm thinking about on the side.
I would think in the franchise business, and I don't know this to be true, there's probably in the initial agreements, there's probably an automatic built-in contingency plan somehow, whether the owner or the franchisor, which franchisee could bring somebody in. I would definitely think there's a contingency plan somewhere built in.
And so I know that you think you advocate for having diversification in your portfolio. Kind of break that down for us. What are you looking for to say, hey, this is very diverse, so that you don't get impacted during the bad times?
Most people think, and I'm going to come back to advisors a lot of times, diversification just means, hey, I'm looking at my statement from the investment company. Mm-hmm. And you see, I have a whole bunch of stocks, and then I have a whole bunch of bonds, and I have a split of 60% stocks, 40% bonds because I'm 40 years old. And that's what I should have. Well, the biggest problem we see when we analyze statements, when customers send us their statements, is you could own 4 growth funds or 4 stock funds, but they all own the same stock, but they all have different fancy names. So I own the Fidelity Growth Fund, and I own the American Growth and Income Fund, and I own this fund, and I own a large cap fund. And then when we break it down, we actually show the client, they all own Amazon, they all own Facebook, they all own Microsoft. So they're really not diversified. The other sort of thing that people think is, well, as long as I have bonds and stocks split, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. But bonds can also take a hit. So for example, when the Fed is going to raise rates now because inflation hit 7.5%, and they're talking about potentially a 0.5 point bump, which is a lot. Generally, bonds take a hit. Yields go up, bond prices could go down. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we still sort of use that formula, but there are programs out there, many programs, where you can get the upside of the market, but have downside protection, or at least a portion of downside protection. And there are also programs where you can put money away, because we do a big part of our business is rollovers. A customer retires, customer, gets released from a job, they need to roll the account over into an IRA. So we do a lot of that. And there are programs now that provide you income for life, regardless of the market. So regardless of the market going down, they capture the upside of the market and then pay you an income for life. And then again, like I said, there are downside protection programs where you have a downside piece where if the market's down, X amount of percentage, you're down a lesser percentage. So there are definitely programs that we set up for clients that can do these things.
I love that. Are y'all, or do y'all can include cryptocurrency as a part of your plan?
Crypto is nuts. We've been being asked about crypto for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
I am not anti-crypto. I think it's probably where the future is. My only concerns with crypto, and it's starting to creep up on us. I mean, if you saw, Bitcoin was 63,000, now it's 42. My only concerns with it is where the government is going to step in, and they're already starting to shake the tree. That's really sort of what we're not really recommending it, more so for that reason. And now the government is really starting to shake the tree. We saw there was a story out, I think it was early this week, about, kind of coming into regulation and whatnot. So that's sort of the only concerns or the main concerns we have and where it all falls.
Waiting until it gets regulated.
Yeah.
So we can figure out where we're going to be at, because the volatility makes it very hard to.
Exactly. There was the story, I don't know if anybody saw, with Odell Beckham. When the Giants cut him loose, he took the crypto, and that's like down 35%. He probably shouldn't have taken the crypto at that point.
Yeah, I saw that, and I don't know if their math was completely correct, but after he has to pay his LA or California tax, his contract is only worth $35,000.
Yeah,
So,
I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if the numbers all added up, but he definitely got hammered in Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I can only imagine, he's got to sit tight on that money, and hopefully he's living off his endorsements or something like that.
Exactly.
But I know for a few guys that did work out, they've been taking some NFL. I haven't seen any NBA, but NFL players. I know one in particular. He took his paycheck in crypto about 4 years ago. Before even it was, I think it was when it was only like 11,000, 10,000,
right?
And then it shot up to 60. So I wonder what he did with that, and I think it's the way of the future. But like you said,
I definitely agree. Yeah, definitely.
Because we're having so much inflation, I think the dollar is slowly starting to go away.
Yeah,
because we won't be able to keep up. Not people, working class citizens, right? Minimum wage workers, they're not going to be able to keep up with this type of inflation, which leads me to believe, okay, so what is going to be the new way to invest? What's going to be the new way to save? And it may not be the dollar. I don't know, maybe in our lifetime. Curious about that.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Do y'all handle UCMAs and UGMAs?
Yeah, we do. The UGMA accounts or UTMA accounts. These are accounts, just to explain to the listeners in more detail, these are accounts generally that are for your kids. So you a grandparent opens an account, or a parent opens account, or an uncle opens account, and it basically is an account slated for a child. And you could invest. You could do it at the bank, or you could even do it as an investment. The only issue with people that they should know is it depends on what the age of majority is in that state. So in New York, it's 21. Different states, it could be 18 still. What that basically means is whatever is in that account at that age becomes that kid's money. So, if it's a little money, it's really not going to matter. If it's a lot of money, the argument's always, do you really want to give that money to that 18-year-old, or that 21-year-old, depending on what state you're in? Yeah. 529 plans are really sort of the best way to tuck money away for the future. So what a 529 is, you put money into a plan, which we set up for you based on the state you're in. You'll get a little state tax deduction, which is always good for the money that goes in each year. And then the money basically grows tax deferred. As long as it's used for college when it comes out, it's basically tax free. Politicians have been trying to tax this account for 15 years. They've been unsuccessful. And I guess I don't think they'll ever do it because it's suicide, political suicide, if they did it. But anyway, the long and the short of it is it provides, money for college, and it grows tax deferred. And the good news about it is the parent, or say grandparent, owns the account. They're the owner for the beneficiary of the child. So let's say you had one child didn't go to college, one did. You could always change the beneficiary. There's different ways to maneuver it, but it's not an account that just gets handed over to a child at 21 years old or 18 years old.
Yeah. So for the UTMA, the age for maturity is 21 in Virginia as well.
Right. Yeah.
What I did like about it is I could jumble multiple things in there: stocks, bonds, real estate, right, royalties. But you are completely right. Even at 21, I wasn't the most mature with my money. Yeah. And so to give, I don't know, $100,000 worth of assets to your 21-year-old, right, some people probably have a stroke. And unless you're completely confident in your child being a child prodigy and they're going to, take over the business at a young age or do their own thing. I'm currently doing their own thing right now. And you're like, okay, by the time they're 21, they'll be mature enough. So I guess let that be something you kind of determine. But I'm kind of like, I believe in not letting them have any of that stuff till they're 30. Make all your mistakes in your 20s, party, blow it all away. Right. But be smart, but you're going to make mistakes. And when you're 30, you've lived a little. I give you that money. well, it's funny you say that, because in a lot of when a lot of attorneys prepare wills, a lot of times those contingencies go in there, that if there is an inheritance, that inheritance doesn't get paid out until a certain age, fully or partially. That's so that is part of that sometimes. Yeah, that's how my wife and I we're really big on keeping the control over the money, and as you prove yourself that you are able to handle this particular responsibility, will relinquish a little bit. Right. So, because I was big on having, the kids having custodial brokerage accounts, but then, somebody was like, hey, well, they turn 18, it's nothing you can do. Yeah, right. I'm like, you know what? I'll put it back in my account. Right. Yeah. So how can people find you? How can people find your website? What are you guys? So are you brick and mortar, or you online only? How do you? No, we physically have customers coming in to see us. But like I said, we have customers that, we work with throughout the country. Our website is gardencity.financialgroup.com. You can go there. There's videos, there's some blogs, there's a contact button. You could always contact us if you have questions, if you want us to do a review, so they can definitely find us there. There's a little construction going on our site. So if you click on it, you see the word logo at the top. That's going to be, it's going to be repaired in the next couple of days, but definitely gardencityfinancialgroup.com. You can hit the contact button. You can call us directly too. But we'll definitely get in touch with you, and we can do some reviews. Yeah, the number I'm seeing is 516-280-9090. That's correct. Great. So yeah, please contact Rich. I'm really big on thinking long term. Fast money is great if you get it, but you got to know what to do with that money for the long term if you intend to want to live a decent amount of time. And I saw that on your website, one of the statistics were that 43% of people underestimate their life expectancy. Right. They run out of money. They run out of money. They thought they were going to live till 85 and they ended up being 96. So, so that's something I guess you can never have enough saved up just in case. No, it's true. And sometimes what happens, because we also do long-term care insurance for customers, where if they need care later on in life. And if people don't have those sort of coverages, what sometimes happens is one spouse can literally wipe out all the money because they need a lot of care. And then maybe if they pass, then the other one literally can have no money. So if there's no planning, that's whether it be life insurance, long-term care, those things definitely can come into play. Yeah, you're right. Well, and then also what I always like to ask everybody is their rich state of mind. What's your big why? What got you into something like this, and why you do it every day? I just honestly, I just every day is like a new day. I really enjoy reviewing portfolios, trying to make a difference in clients' lives.
helping them protect what they've worked so hard for and just kind of showing them the way. And in our business, in my business, unfortunately, it's sort of always, for years and years and years, it's always about pitching the greed or discussing the greed. This is how much you can make if we put this money in this. And I just never viewed it that way. I just never viewed it that way. Sort of viewed it as, okay, take a step back. You don't have to, make 15% a year. There's ways you're going to make less, but you can protect your downside and make sure that you keep going forward. So that's what I think drives me the most.
I love it. And final question, man, Knicks fan or Nets fan?
No, I'm a Knicks fan, a Giant fan, a Yankee fan.
I'm a Mets fan.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I love the Mets. Yankees, they were winning too much for me. And
I'm not a hater. So if the Jets are playing or the Jets and Giants are difficult to watch
nowadays,
but,
yes.
But I've always been Knicks and I've always been Rangers as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rich. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And please, everybody, contact him. This is for long-term investing, estate planning, looking at your portfolio and seeing what you can do to improve. Definitely contact Rich.
Thank you. Great to be on your show.
Thank you for sticking with us from the start of the episode. Please share our show with friends and family, visit our YouTube channel, and view more of our content on richstateofmind.com. See you next week on the Rich State of Mind Show.